Hey there everyone, welcome to the series Automate the Boring Stuff in Ansys Mechanical. In today's video, we will be looking at Selection Manager. So let's see how do we access Selection Manager. With Selection Manager, you can actually select this phase. You can get the IDs of this phase and then use this phase for any scoping. For example, if you create a remote point or a remote mass, you can scope these phases to the location of those objects that you create. Even you can use it for any load objects or boundary conditions. So let's see how do we access that. First thing that we will see is what is the entry point. So same as before, it's ext API dot selection manager. So you will see here it is written get. So you get a something which is nothing but I selection manager. I stands for interface. So it gives an interface of type selection manager, and it has no argument, so it's not a function. So once I enter that, you will see the system type of selection manager is Ansys ACT Mechanical, and it's Mechanical Selection Manager. So let's store this selection manager into some variable. So I will call it as SM. SM is also the official name for the selection manager when you go for coding using JavaScript, which I will create a new series for that. I'm planning to do that. So let's store it. And if I type sm.get type, you will see this is of type same mechanical selection manager. And how do we use this interface of selection manager? So first thing we will see what is the current selection. So if I type this current selection, it says you get an interface which is I of type selection info, and it has written that it gets this current selection. Let's see what it returns. So if I press tab and enter, you will see it's returning a list with nothing inside it. There are no elements, but this is actually not a list, because as we have seen, it is returning I selection info. Then why do you see a list? This is actually the IDs of whatever you have selected. So I will show you that. So let's re-enter that. You are getting nothing. If I select this phase and rerun the same code, you will see it's returning a I selection info. Please be aware that this is not an I list. It is IDs of an I selection info, which is nothing but interface of selection info. So it has returned 11. And if I open the selection information, which you can access from here, tool selection info, or press I, you will see that this phase has a reference ID of 11. If I select this surface, it says ID is 14. Let me check that. So if I rerun that code, you will see it is returning 14. So let's how do we use that? Suppose I select three phases, and if I see that it's showing 14, 11, and 10. If I rerun that, you will see it's returning I selection info, which has IDs as a list, which is 14, 11, and 10. Let's create an object of selection info. So just remember, if you want to use these selections of this, even a body, for example, this body, which has a unique ID of 91, if I rerun that, you will see 91. So if you want to store this ID or use these IDs anywhere, the most important thing that you need is selection info. So let's create an instance of a selection info. To create that, you have to type sm dot create selection info. So let's see what it is telling. So create selection info is returns an interface of select type selection info. The function name is create selection info, and it has an argument which says it's an enum of type selection type enum. And then we have already talked about the enum in our last video. So if I do that and open bracket, I will just copy this enum name. It will have certain members. So let's go through those members. So first is geometry entities. So it says all selected items will be IDs of geometry entity. It can be a surface, it can be a face, edge, body. If you go to mesh, similarly, it will show IDs of face index available of elements. Similarly, for this only elements, here it was element face, here it is elements, here it is node, path, surface, and worksheet. So right now we are working on only geometry entities. So let's go through this code once again. So it's creating a interface of selection info. whose enum property or whose property value should be of geometry entity. So I have to use that. I have to assign it to some variable. I will call it as cell info, and then if I create that, and if I enter cell info, it's returning nothing. And if it's not a list. So if I do cell info dot get type, you will see it's returning a mechanical selection info. It's not a list. For example, if I create a blank list and do name it as li dot get type, you will see it won't return some other objects. So it's returning a list, right? So here, though you are seeing a list symbol, it's not a list, it's a type selection info. So let's use that. So there are two parameters that we will be using frequently. This I have never used and it's not useful much. So two things is ID and IDs. The difference between two is ID is the unique object ID of this object which you have just created, and IDs, which is IDs, it gives the list of all the um, entity IDs. For example, you have selected this body, right? So this body has an ID 91. So that becomes the IDs of this selection info. So when I enter this cell info dot IDs, you will see it's blank. It's nothing. So if I rerun that ID, you will see it's actually a get or set property, and it's an I list. So IDs is a list, whereas cell info is not a list, rather it's a selection info. So it says list and it should be of type integers. So let's assign this list, create list whose number will be 91. So I will uncheck this body. I have not selected anything, and if I type cell info dot IDs, you will get same 91, or even if you type cell info, you will get this 91. So this first one was a list, but this one is a selection info. Both look same, but both type are not same. So let's see how do we select that face. So I can just enter I can go back to the selection manager dot, and you will see here new selection. So it says it creates a new selection, and you should send us type selection info. So for example, new selection, and if I open and if I enter that selection info which I created, and if I enter that, you will see this item is created. So let's break down this requirement in two ways. First, I will have certain IDs with me in hand and I will select it here. Second is, let's select these bodies here and reassign and assign those IDs into the selection info. So now we have seen a face. For example, let's select these faces. It has IDs 14, 11 and 10. So I will assign cell info uh, bracket 14, 11, 10. You will get an error, and because if I rerun that cell info dot IDs, you will see cell info has become a list. It didn't give error, but cell info is not useful because cell info is nothing. It's not a selection info anymore. It's become a list. So I will have to rerun cell info which I created, and then instead of this code which I just enter, it should be cell info dot IDs. So make sure you do that. Now cell info is still, it's not a list. Now it's a selection info. Now if I rerun this code, that new selection, and uncheck all these bodies, if I rerun, you will see it has selected 3 surfaces. Um, the usage of this cell info I will talk when I create a sample point mass and assign these IDs to that location of that point mass. So now let's go the other way now. So I have selected this face, and then what I will do, I will call selection manager and then call current selection. So what happens is if I enter it's a get property and it returns an I selection info, and it has no argument, so it just it's kind of property. Okay, so if I enter that, see it has written 14, 11 and 12, but it is not stored anywhere. So what you can do is you can just do cell info is equal to sm dot current selection. So as you know that this is actually retaining a selection info, our intent of this selection info was also an selection info. So if I rerun that, you will see selection info is still a type of selection info, and its IDs are sorry, selinfo dot IDs. So it has not stored for some reason. Let's do one thing. Let's see what. Okay. The main reason it is not showing is because I unselected those. If I select this phase and if I rerun that, let's enter cell info again. So you will see 14, 11 and 10 is selected back. Now how do we select those surfaces from the cell info? As we have seen before, it is nothing but sm dot new selection, and in the argument we will send this selection info which we just created. So you will see these faces are reselected and its IDs are same 14, 11 and 10. So these are the two ways, and if you want to clear these selections, so it will be sm dot clear selection. So it's a void, means it does not return anything. It clear, and it's a function. So it has parentheses with no argument, and you will see this selections are getting cleared out. Next is this selection. You can use this selection info in couple of ways. So let's assign only this phase which has a ID 11. So cell info dot IDs is only 11. So if you go to selection here, you will see a location. So you will see all these properties which says select all entities with same X, same Y, same Z, like that. You can even do from here. So if you do cell info dot, uh, you don't get anything. So you have to start from selection manager. So I have selected this surface, and if I enter sm dot uh, same select same location whose coordinates match with all other surface x coordinates, and you will see it's a function. It does not return anything, but it selects for you. So if you select this, you will see all these surfaces has same, I mean the COG or this coordinate centroid x, all these surfaces matches. So this way you can loop over all the surfaces and see, for example, this one. And if I want to select the all top 4 surfaces, then what common it has is the y coordinate. So if I just manually select, and you will see the y coordinates are matching, right? So let me select one and rerun that code and make it y instead of x. You will see all these 4 surfaces are selected. So we can, if you want to assign the IDs of this, so you can do the same. For example, so this is not returning anything. So what I have to do is I have to rerun the code like uh, cell info is equal to sm dot current selection, right? So it will return, and if I enter cell info, you should get those 4 IDs. If you unselect and rerun sm dot new selection and make it cell info, you will see that 4 things are added up. I mean shown. So what if you want to add certain new selection? For example, right now these 4 surfaces are on the top. I want to add this additional surface which has an ID of 10. So what I will do is I have to do sm dot add selection. I will add, okay, let's go through what it is writing. It does not return anything, which is important. And then it says add selection, and you have to pass an argument which is of type selection info. So let's do that. And if I enter cell info, you will see that in addition to the last selected surface, it has added this 4 surfaces which was stored in cell info. But one thing to note is cell info.id is still those 4 surfaces. So this fifth one is not added. So what you have to do is you have to rerun cell info is equal to selection manager dot current selection. It will update this 4 IDs into 5. So if I rerun cell info.id, you will see instead of 4 it is 5, which matches with this. Now one more thing I wanted to show you is, for example, I have a body and I want to select a face. I will do multiple. I will select body and this face. I cannot do that. Okay. So but I can do manually. For example, this body has an ID 91 and this face an ID 69. So 91 and 69, I will rerun the code, is equal to 91 comma 69. I can do that manually. And if I show that selection to you, so it is sm dot new selection and cell info. You will see the body and the face is selected. You are not getting property because multi-type property will not be shown. It's telling mixed selection. Mixed selection properties will not be shown because this will have a volume and the COG, but this one has a COG and an area, so both don't match. That's the reason you won't see anything mixed selection. But if you want to use these things, you can use in geodata. For example, there is this next video will be of geodata. Geodata has properties of this face. So for example, if I select this body, then it can, in addition to all the properties, it can loop over all the faces. Each face will have edges, each edge will have vertex. Like that you can loop over. That will come under geodata. So right now let's make it a surface and keep only this one of the surface. For example, let's keep it 14. Instead of doing manually, let's see how fast we can do with code. So it will be cell info is equal to sm dot current selection. So if I type cell info, I should see 14. Yeah, so 14. Now where can I use this cell info? For example, let me create a point mass at the center of this surface. So what I will do is, to create a point mass, I will do ext API dot data model dot project dot model dot geometry dot add point mass. So you will see it's a function and it will return a point mass. Let's store that point mass as PM, and if we enter that, you will see point mass is created and this object is stored in a variable named PM. So if I do PM dot location, you will see that it's a get and set property. So right now this face was selected, so automatically it has gone. So let's unselect that, delete this face and recreate it, so that that location will be blank. If I re-enter that and if I select, you will see this is yellow. So it has no selection and the mask. Let's see how we can assign the face which is stored in cell info into this location of point mask PM. So PM dot location, it's telling it's a get or set property. And its type is interface. It's an interface of type selection info, and it says the name as location. So it's not a function; it's just a method. So if you enter, you will see it's not returning a list. We have talked on this before. So it's actually an iSelection info whose IDs are stored in the list. So it's blank now. So we can store it like PM dot location is equal to cell info. That's it. If you see, if you can see this yellow highlighted here. If you enter that, you will see this face has been selected automatically. Similarly, if you have multiple faces, for example, this 4 face, and let me recheck that PM dot location, you will see it's selecting as 14. Let's store this 4 selection in. So I will access that same point mask. So instead of one face, I want on those 4 faces. So what will happen is, let me rerun cell info is equal to sm dot current selection. Let's recheck what is cell info. You will see all 4 surfaces are selected. So I will rerun that PM dot location, point mask dot location, and I will make it as cell info. So you will see now it has become 4 face. So this coordinates have not changed because initially it was already created. So if I delete that and create a point mask now and rerun that, you will see it is created at the center of those 4 faces. You can even access this mask. I will talk about in geometry video, in which I will create a point mask. We will access the properties, all the visible properties of this part. And there is a difference of geodata of part and object properties of this part. So if I click this part, maximum properties that you can get is this: volume, mass, centroid, moment of inertia. But in geodata, in addition to these details, you will have access of each faces, each vertex on this. Even you can you can go parent of this face. For example, parent of this face will be this body, parent of this edge will be this body, or these two faces which are common. It can even tell you what kind of surface it is. For example, if I select this face, it's telling me it's of type plane, right? There is also a type cylindrical, conical. There are certain inbuilt surfaces which are available. For example, this one, cylindrical faces. Even these are included in those geodata. We will try to replicate these cylindrical faces in geodata video. All right. So this is how you can use this eye selection info and use it for this point masses. Even you can create a force. Okay, I created this point mass, assigned it into a variable, and then access the location. Even you can do it in one line. For example, I want to create a force, ext api dot data model dot project dot model dot analysis. It's the first analysis, so it will be 0 dot add force. If I do that, so it will create a force, and I don't want to store it. I just want to assign the location of it, and even I don't want to assign any values. I will leave as it is. So I can continue in this same method. So this will create a force. From there, I will try to access dot, and it will be location. Location is equal to, I will assign here itself. So it will do two things. First is it will create a force. This line, selected line, will create a force. From that force, after the force is created, it will go to the force dot location, and then it will assign cell info. So you will see I have not selected anything here, and if I run enter, you will see this force is created, and automatically these four faces are created. Since this force is not stored in any variable, you cannot access this magnitude right now. So the another way to do that is loop over all the children's, or use get children of model or analysis and see uh, and get the access of the force. So you can loop over the children's of static and see which one is of type force or load, and then from there you can access the magnitude. That's all for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, do let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to subscribe, and have a good rest of your day. Thank you.